I was $3 short for a motel room when my whole life changed. The woman behind the counter at the Super 8 looked at me like I was a ghost. Maybe I was. I hadn't seen myself in a real mirror in weeks, just the rear view of my Honda Civic where I'd been sleeping since September. It was February now. Chicago winters aren't kind to the homeless. I wiped my hands on my jeans, counting out crumpled bills and quarters from my coat pocket. $2.73. That's all I had left from yesterday's shift at the coffee shop. The heater in my car had died 3 days ago. I can come back tomorrow, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. When I get paid? That's when I heard it. Heels clicking on linoleum. Expensive heels. Natalie Morgan? My heart stopped. Nobody had called me by my full name in months. At the coffee shop, I was just Nat on the name tag. To the shelter volunteers, I was Sweetie or Hun. I turned around slowly. The woman standing behind me looked like she'd stepped out of a law firm commercial. Tailored navy suit, leather briefcase, gray hair pulled back in a perfect chignon. She was maybe 60, with sharp eyes that seemed to cut right through my thrift store coat and dirty sneakers. Yes? I managed. She smiled, but it wasn't pity. It was something else. Relief, maybe. I've been looking for you for 3 weeks. I'm Margaret Winters from Blackwell & Associates. Your great-aunt Evelyn passed away last month. Aunt Evelyn. I hadn't thought about her in years. Mom's aunt? The one who'd left the family before I was born. The legendary creative director who'd built campaigns for Coca-Cola and American Airlines back in the 70s. I'd seen her exactly once. At my college graduation. She'd slipped me her business card and said, "When you're ready to stop playing it safe, call me." I never did. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said automatically. My fingers were still clutching the pathetic pile of bills and coins, but I don't understand why you're looking for me. Margaret glanced at the motel clerk, then back at me. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" I almost laughed. Privately? The only private space I had was my car, and it smelled like old coffee and desperation. "My car," I said. "It's parked outside." We sat in my Honda Civic, Margaret in the passenger seat that I'd cleared of empty protein bar wrappers and library books about starting over. She didn't comment on the sleeping bag in the back seat or the plastic bag of toiletries hanging from the headrest. She just opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Your great-aunt Evelyn died on January 15th, Margaret said. "She left very specific instructions in her will. The bulk of her estate goes to you." I stared at her. I barely knew her. "She knew you." Margaret pulled out a photograph. It was me at 22, walking across the stage at Northwestern, accepting my diploma in advertising and communications. Aunt Evelyn must have taken it from the audience. On the back, in elegant handwriting, "She has it. The spark. Just needs to find it again." "She followed your career," Margaret continued. "She knew about the campaign you created for the Children's Literacy Foundation, the one that won the gold ADDY. She knew about Derek Hayes." My stomach dropped. Derek, my ex-husband, the man who'd destroyed everything I'd built. "She knew what happened?" Margaret's expression softened. "She knew everything, Natalie. The plagiarism accusation, the smear campaign, how they pushed you out of Hartman and Wells. She knew it was all fabricated." The tears came before I could stop them. For 6 months, everyone had believed Derek's lies. That I'd stolen a campaign concept from a junior designer. That I'd passed it off as my own to win the Microsoft pitch. They had emails, timestamps, everything meticulously faked by Derek and his affair partner Ashley. I lost the pitch, lost my job, lost my reputation. Every agency in Chicago had blacklisted me. Nobody wanted to hire a creative director with a plagiarism scandal on her record. Derek divorced me 2 weeks later. The prenup his lawyers had made me sign meant I walked away with nothing. He kept the Lincoln Park condo, the savings account, even our dog. "Nobody believed me," I whispered. "Evelyn did." Margaret handed me a tissue from her purse. "That's why she changed her will. She left you everything. The townhouse in Manhattan, her investment portfolio, the agency." "What agency?" "Morgan Creative, the firm she founded in 1975. It's been struggling since she got sick, but it's still operational. $43 million in total assets." I couldn't breathe. $43 million. "There's one condition," Margaret said quietly. Of course there was. "You have to run the agency, personally, for 18 months minimum. If you walk away before that, everything goes to charity. Evelyn wanted to see if you still had what it takes. If you could rebuild what Derek destroyed." I looked out the windshield at the motel parking lot, at my life reduced to a garbage bag of clothes and a gym membership I used to shower, at the coffee shop across the street where I made lattes for people who used to be my colleagues. When do I start? 3 days later, I was standing in front of a 5-story brownstone in Manhattan's Flatiron District. The brass plaque beside the door read, Morgan Creative, Este, 1975. Margaret handed me a set of keys. The top floor was Evelyn's apartment. It's yours now. The agency occupies floors 2 through 4. Ground floor is the reception and client meeting space. What about the team? I asked. How many people work here? 14. Down from 32 when Evelyn got sick. The creative director quit 6 months ago. They've been running on fumes. Great. I was inheriting a sinking ship with a crew that probably resented me already. The apartment was like stepping into a time capsule. Mid-century modern furniture, walls covered in framed vintage ads, a drafting table by the window overlooking Madison Square Park. There was a note on the kitchen counter. Evelyn's handwriting. Natalie, if you're reading this, you've hit bottom. Good. You can't build anything real until you know what it feels like to have nothing. The agency needs someone who remembers how to be hungry. Don't let them see you cry. Make them remember why Morgan is a name that matters. Love, Aunt E. I cried anyway. The next morning, I put on the one professional outfit I'd kept, a black sheath dress I'd bought for client pitches back when I had a career. My hands shook as I applied makeup in Evelyn's bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me was thin, with dark circles under her eyes and hair that desperately needed a professional cut. But she was clean. She had a roof over her head. She had a chance. The creative team was waiting in the conference room on the 3rd floor. 14 pairs of eyes turned to me as I walked in, some curious, some skeptical, one openly hostile. Good morning, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I'm Natalie Morgan. Evelyn was my great-aunt. I know you're all wondering who the hell I am and why I'm here. A man in his 40s with sleeve tattoos and hipster glasses leaned back in his chair. We know who you are, the creative director who got fired for plagiarism. Daniel, a woman next to him, hissed. No, he's right to bring it up, I said. Yes, I was accused of plagiarism at my last agency. The accusation was fabricated by my ex-husband and his girlfriend to force me out. But I can't prove that, so you'll have to decide for yourselves whether you believe me. The room was silent. What I can tell you is this, I continued. Evelyn left me this agency because she believed I could save it. I've spent the last 6 months learning what it's like to have nothing. I've been homeless. I've slept in my car. I've applied for jobs at places that wouldn't even interview me. So, I'm not here to play games or coast on Evelyn's legacy. I'm here to rebuild. If you want to be part of that, stay. If not, I'll write you glowing recommendations. Nobody moved. Okay then, I said. Let's see where we are. What pitches do we have coming up? A woman in her 30s with red hair and a Portfolio Center sweatshirt spoke up. We're pitching the Transit Authority campaign next week. 3 other agencies are competing. Budget is $8 million. Show me what you have. They showed me. It was safe. Boring. The kind of work that wouldn't win awards or lose the pitch, but wouldn't save a dying agency either. This is fine, I said carefully. But fine doesn't win. What's the insight? What's the human truth about public transit? Blank stares. Come on, I pushed. You all ride the subway, right? What do you feel when you're down there? Annoyed, someone offered. Tired, another said. Invisible, the redhead said quietly. Like I'm just one of millions. Nobody sees me. I'm just trying to get somewhere. I smiled. That's it. That's the insight. Public transit is where 8 million individual stories intersect. We're not selling trains, we're selling connection, being part of something bigger. The energy in the room shifted. I could see it in their faces. The thing I'd been missing for months. The spark of an idea catching fire. We worked for 14 hours straight. By midnight, we had a concept that made my hands shake the way they used to when I was creating something real. A campaign built around actual New Yorkers' stories, filmed in real time, unscripted, authentic, human, true. When everyone finally left, I found the redhead still at her desk. You didn't have to stay, I said. She looked up. I'm Sarah. I've been here 5 years. I watched this place fall apart after Evelyn got sick. I'd started looking for other jobs. She paused. But that was the first time in months I've felt like we were making something that mattered. We'll see if the Transit Authority agrees. They will, Sarah said. Because you're not trying to impress them, you're trying to tell the truth. That's what Evelyn always did. The pitch was in 6 days. I spent every waking hour preparing, drilling the team, refining the concept. At night, I sat in Evelyn's apartment reading her journals. She'd kept detailed notes on every campaign, every client meeting, every failure and triumph. One entry from 1982. Lost the Delta pitch today. Team is devastated. But we lost because we refused to compromise on the insight. I'd rather fail telling the truth than succeed selling lies. That's the Morgan difference. I understood then what Evelyn wanted me to learn. It wasn't about the money or the legacy. It was about remembering who I was before Derek made me doubt myself. The morning of the pitch, I put on a suit I'd found in Evelyn's closet. It fit perfectly, like she'd known I'd need it. I was adjusting the collar when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Natalie. It's Derek. My blood went cold. I hadn't heard his voice in 6 months. How did you get this number? I heard you inherited your aunt's company. Congratulations. His voice dripped with false warmth. I wanted to reach out. Maybe we could grab coffee. Talk about old times. We have nothing to talk about. Don't be like that. Look, I know things ended badly between us, but I'm trying to make amends. Ashley and I aren't together anymore. I made mistakes. I almost laughed. He wanted forgiveness now? After destroying my career and my life? Goodbye, Derek. Wait, I heard you're pitching Transit Authority today. That's one of Hartman and Wells's clients. We're pitching too. My stomach dropped. Of course they were. May the best agency win, Derek said smoothly. Though between you and me, they're probably not going to pick the firm run by someone with your history. Just being realistic. He hung up. I stood there shaking, all my confidence from the last week evaporating. Derek was right. Why would the Transit Authority choose us? Why would they choose me? There was a knock on the door. Sarah and another team member, Marcus Lawrence, stood in the hallway. Marcus was the strategy director, a quiet guy in his 30s who'd been with the agency since Evelyn's time. We heard, Marcus said, about Derek pitching against us. How did you? Advertising is a small world, Sarah said. Everyone talks, but here's what they're not talking about. They're not talking about the fact that Hartman and Wells has lost 3 major clients in the last year. They're not talking about the fact that Derek's creative director left to start her own agency. They're not talking about the plagiarism scandal Derek is currently dealing with. I blinked. What? Marcus pulled out his phone, showing me an article from Ad Age. Broke this morning. One of the junior creatives he worked with came forward with proof that Derek has been stealing concepts for years, including the one he accused you of plagiarizing. My hands were shaking as I read. The junior creative had emails, original sketches, everything. The Microsoft campaign hadn't been mine, but it hadn't been Derek's either. He'd stolen it from a 24-year-old designer named Kelly Wu and passed it off as his own. When she'd threatened to expose him, he'd framed me instead. Kelly reached out to me last month, Marcus said. She'd heard you were running Morgan Creative. She wanted to make things right. I couldn't speak. So when you walk into that room today, Sarah said, remember that you're not the person Derek said you were. You never were. The Transit Authority pitch was held in a glass conference room overlooking Grand Central Terminal. There were 5 agencies presenting. We were last. I watched the other 4 pitch. All safe. All forgettable. When Hartman and Wells presented, I saw Derek across the room. He looked older, tired. Ashley stood next to him, and the chemistry that had once destroyed my marriage was clearly gone. They barely looked at each other. Their concept was predictable. Celebrity endorsements. Flashy graphics. No soul. When it was our turn, I stood at the front of the room and took a breath. Public transit isn't about trains, I began. It's about the 8 million people who ride them. The nurse finishing her night shift. The student heading to his first job interview. The grandmother visiting her grandkids in Queens. Every one of them has a story. Every one of them matters. We don't want to sell you a campaign. We want to give you theirs. We showed the sizzle reel. Real New Yorkers. Real stories. Real moments of connection in the chaos of the subway. When the lights came back on, the room was silent. Then the Transit Authority's CMO started clapping. The rest of the room joined in. We won the pitch. In the hallway after, Derek tried to intercept me. Natalie, wait. Can we talk? No, I said simply. Please, I need to explain. There's nothing to explain. You tried to destroy me because you were threatened by me. You failed. That's all I need to know. Kelly Wu is lying, he said desperately. Those emails are fake. I'm being set up just like you were. The difference is, I was telling the truth. You're not. I walked away and didn't look back. The Transit Authority campaign launched 3 months later. It went viral within hours. Not because it was flashy or expensive, but because it was real. People saw themselves in those stories. They shared them. They cried over them. Morgan Creative's phones didn't stop ringing for weeks. Brands that hadn't looked at us in years suddenly wanted meetings. The team grew from 14 to 25. We moved into the 5th floor, and somewhere in all of that, I started having coffee with Marcus. It started professionally. Strategy sessions that ran late, turning into dinner. Then it was dinner first, strategy after. Then it was just dinner, and neither of us was talking about work anymore. "I need to tell you something," I said one night at a quiet restaurant in the West Village. We'd been seeing each other for 6 weeks, though neither of us had called it dating. "About Derek." "I know about Derek," Marcus said. "Everyone knows about Derek." "No, I mean about what happened. The real reason I'm cautious about this." I gestured between us. "Whatever this is." Marcus set down his fork. "Okay. When Derek and I got married, I was 27. I'd just made creative director. I thought I had everything figured out. He asked me to sign a prenup, said it was standard for executives. I signed it because I loved him and I trusted him." I paused. When he decided he wanted out, that prenup meant I left with nothing. He'd been planning it for months. The affair with Ashley, the plagiarism setup, the divorce. All of it coordinated to push me out with zero recourse. "Natalie, I'm not telling you this for pity," I said. "I'm telling you because if this becomes something real, I need you to understand that I can't do that again. I can't trust someone with everything and have them use it to destroy me." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he reached across the table and took my hand. "When my mom died, she left me her wedding ring," he said. "Victorian era, belonged to her grandmother. Worth maybe $15,000. Before she died, she made me promise I'd only give it to someone who loved me for who I am, not what I have." He looked at me. "I've been carrying it for 8 years. Never met anyone I wanted to give it to. Until now." My breath caught. "I'm not asking you to marry me," Marcus said quickly. "I'm just saying that when I imagine my future, you're in it. And I don't care about prenups or contracts or protecting assets. I care about building something real with someone who understands what that means. But what if I turn out to be like Derek?" Marcus finished. "Then you'll fire me and keep the agency. Because you're Natalie Morgan, and you don't let anyone destroy you twice." I laughed through tears. That's a terrible romantic gesture. But it's true. It was true. I wasn't the same person who'd signed Derek's prenup. I wasn't the same person who'd slept in her car and counted quarters for motel rooms. I was someone who'd rebuilt herself brick by brick, who'd turned a failing agency into something that mattered. "Okay," I said. "Okay to what?" "Okay to the future. Okay to us. Okay to seeing where this goes." Marcus smiled, and it was the first time in a year I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The 18-month deadline came faster than I expected. The morning it hit, I was in Evelyn's office, my office, now reviewing Q3 revenue reports. Morgan Creative had tripled in size. We'd won 12 major accounts. Ad Age had named us Comeback Agency of the Year. Margaret called at 9 a.m., sharp. "Congratulations," she said. "You've fulfilled the terms of Evelyn's will. The agency is officially yours. No more conditions." "Thank you," I said. But something felt unfinished. "There's one more thing," Margaret added. "Evelyn left you a letter. I was instructed to deliver it only after you completed the 18 months. Can I bring it by?" An hour later, I was holding a cream-colored envelope with my name in Evelyn's elegant script. "Dearest Natalie, if you're reading this, you made it. You proved what I always knew, that you're stronger than whatever tried to break you. I need to tell you something I never had the courage to say in person. 40 years ago, I was engaged to a man named William Hart. He was charming, successful, everything I thought I wanted. The week before our wedding, I discovered he'd been stealing my campaign concepts and pitching them as his own to start his own agency. I called off the wedding. Lost all our mutual friends. The industry said I was difficult, emotional, couldn't handle success. I almost gave up advertising entirely. But then I remembered why I'd started. Not to impress William or anyone else. To tell stories that mattered. To create work that changed how people saw the world. I founded Morgan Creative with nothing but debt and determination. And I built something that lasted because I refused to compromise what I knew was true. When I saw what Derek did to you, I saw William. I saw the same pattern, a man threatened by a woman's talent, using her trust as a weapon. I knew if I left you money, you'd rebuild. But I didn't want you just to survive. I wanted you to remember who you were before someone tried to make you smaller. The agency was never about me. It was always about you. About proving to yourself that you could take something broken and make it whole again. I wish I'd told you this in person. I wish I'd called you back when you needed someone to believe you. But I was sick and running out of time. And sometimes the best thing we can do is set things up and trust people to find their way. You found your way, Natalie. Now go build something extraordinary. With all my love, Aunt Evelyn. P.S. The young man in strategy, Marcus, he's good for you. I could tell from the way he talked about your work in meetings, even when you weren't there. Don't let fear make you push away something real. I sat at her desk and cried. Not sad tears. Grateful ones. For a woman I'd barely known but who'd seen me clearly enough to give me exactly what I needed. There was a knock on my door. Sarah poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but we just got a call from Nike. They want to set up a pitch meeting for their global campaign relaunch. Nike? Nike. As in, the Nike. Sarah grinned. Apparently, the Transit Authority CMO is friends with their chief brand officer. Told them we were the agency that made her cry in a pitch meeting. I laughed and wiped my eyes. Set it up. After Sarah left, I walked to the window. 18 months ago, I'd been sleeping in my car, $3 short of a motel room, convinced my life was over. Now I was standing in my own office, running an agency that bore my family's name, about to pitch the biggest sports brand in the world. Derek had tried to erase me. Instead, he'd freed me to become who I was always meant to be. That weekend, Marcus and I drove out to Sleepy Hollow Cemetery where Evelyn was buried. Her headstone was simple. Evelyn Morgan, 1945 to 2024. She told the truth. I placed flowers on her grave and told her about Nike, about the agency, about Marcus, about how I'd finally stopped being afraid. Thank you, I said quietly, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. The wind picked up, rustling through the trees. It felt like an answer. On the drive back to the city, Marcus asked, "What do you want to do with the townhouse? It's a lot of space for one person." I looked at him. Maybe it won't be one person forever. He smiled and took my hand. My phone buzzed with an email. Kelly Wu, the designer who'd exposed Derek's plagiarism. Subject line: Thought you'd want to know. I opened it. Inside was an article from the Chicago Tribune. Derek's agency had filed for bankruptcy. The plagiarism scandal had destroyed his reputation. 3 more designers had come forward with proof he'd stolen their work over the years. His former partners were suing him. Ashley Sterling had taken a job in Des Moines. I showed Marcus the article. Should I feel bad? Do you? I thought about it. About the months of sleeping in my car. About being erased from the industry I loved. About rebuilding myself from nothing. No, I said. I don't feel bad at all. Because Derek hadn't destroyed me. He'd given me the greatest gift without meaning to. He'd stripped away everything I thought defined me and forced me to discover what was actually real. My talent was real. My resilience was real. The work I created mattered because I made it matter, not because someone else said it did. I was Natalie Morgan. I'd survived the worst thing I could imagine. And on the other side of that survival, I'd found something better than what I'd lost. I'd found myself,